The symbol of France and a survivor of 2 world wars, the Eiffel Tower is iconic and beloved across the globe as a symbol of the city of love, Paris. Today, however, there are fears that its longevity may not be as once hoped. Facing the natural elements all these years, it appears to be succumbing to rust. What can be done to help save this national treasure and historic landmark? To start with a bit of history, the tower was built in 1889 for the Exposition Universelle, meaning the World's Fair in English. It was designed by French engineer Gustave Eiffel, who lived in the 19th to the 20th centuries, and his name is now immortalized in the world-renowned structure. A historical curiosity is that the tower's design was actually protested by a great many artists and architects who protested its construction as too avant-garde with its gaudiness. They thought this metal structure would ruin the Parisian skyline. What a relief that this opinion did not prevail. The tower first opened to the public in May 1889 and received 30,000 people after just a few days. It was the first thing to welcome visitors to the World's Fair and was meant to showcase French engineering skill. The architects and the fair's organizers in France also wanted a structure to commemorate the strength of the people during the French Revolution of 1789 that poignantly ended 100 years earlier. Met with great acclaim and fanfare to the dismay of its detractors, the Eiffel Tower was scheduled to be removed 20 years later in 1909. Luckily for us today, this temporary installation was saved from demolition. In fact, Gustave Eiffel himself suggested to the appropriate authorities that the tower be used as a radio telegraph station, and this worked. As the new technology of wireless telegraphy was emerging in the 1890s, the Eiffel Tower became a central signal receptor for the city of Paris. Things moved quickly, as in November 1898, the very first radio contact in Morse code successfully dispatched from the Eiffel Tower to the Pantheon 4 kilometers away. Then a dispatch successfully reached London, England, 1 year later in 1899. Of course, the French military got word of this revolutionary use of technology on a monumental structure in the heart of Paris. In 1918, at the height of the Second World War, Gustave Eiffel's tower was used to intercept German-coded messages. So, the bottom line as to why the structure is so special? Well, it's a historic artifact and landmark that both symbolizes progress and is a product of its time. Its allure attracts tourists from all over the world. With about 6 million paying visitors every year, it draws them all to Paris, the so-called City of Love in France. Deceptively simple and sleek, the Eiffel Tower was an avant-garde structure in its time. Let's have a look at the specifics. Visitors in the early days of its creation had to climb 1,710 steps to reach the top of the tower. Luckily for future generations, elevators were installed a short month later, after its grand opening in June 1889. The contract Otis Elevator Company, founded in 1853, was the same team of engineers who designed and installed the first passenger elevator at the Crystal Palace Convention in New York City in 1856. The tower measures 330 meters or 1,083 feet in height. This was astonishing when it was unveiled because it's more than twice as tall as the most renowned and historic architecture of the day, namely St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, Italy, and the Giza Pyramid in Egypt. It was only surpassed in height in 1929 when the Chrysler Building was built in New York City, USA. Eiffel used his knowledge of bridge building to design and direct the construction of this tower. The entire structure stands on 4 lattice girder piers that taper inward, which ensures the load-bearing capacity of the structure. These lattice girder piers curve inward and are connected to each other at 2 levels by a network of large iron or steel beams, typically used for frames of bridges. That is how the viewing platforms for tourists were created, located 276 meters or 906 feet above the ground. Finally, Gustave Eiffel chose wrought iron for this revolutionary design. Those familiar with material science and engineering may know that iron is a softer metal than most others on average, and that it oxidizes easily. In layman's terms, it's not the best choice for a massive structure meant to represent Paris for years to come. Put simply, the Eiffel Tower is 10,000 tons of wrought iron. It was also meant to be temporary, as we've seen, for which there may be a very good reason: rain and metal don't mix. One aspect not favoring the tower's longevity is a combination of its 2.5 million rivets and 18,000 iron parts, all confronting the rainy Paris weather. As mentioned, the oxidation of iron is quite problematic for the tower's longevity. The oxidation of metals occurs when oxygen in the air causes some of the metal, wrought iron in this case, to corrode or oxidize. This chemical process forms metal oxide on the surface, leading to the color changes seen in many buildings from the Industrial Revolution era, now brown or green. So, why did Gustave Eiffel choose wrought iron? Well, prior to his designs, buildings were generally made of wood, which is quite flimsy and prone to fires, or masonry, i.e. stone or brick, which is very heavy and cumbersome. As such, it couldn't support such a high structure as he had in mind, and certainly not the intricate lattice pattern he had envisioned. Cast iron was considered because it can be thinned, compressed under pressure without breaking, and support much weight. However, it doesn't stretch well. Steel was another option at the time, but market prices were sky high, and Eiffel had a budget to respect. Steel is also far too rigid for the delicate and elegant design of the tower, so he settled on wrought iron. It has all the qualities the other metals lacked, in addition to being stronger than wood and lighter than stone. This wonderful and iconic structure has survived 135 years under various uses, as we've seen. But now, the problem is that all those years of wear and tear are not only starting to show, but are also threatening the structure integrity of the tower. A recent report from April 2024 states this: Union workers and the national government claim that the city of Paris is failing to properly maintain the tower, putting the much-loved national icon in peril. Employees see day by day that the tower is rusting, and that this could be irreversible, says the union spokesman. It appears, according to this article, that the last time the nation had the money and manpower to renovate and upkeep the tower was 14 years ago. Work was initiated in 2019 but was delayed because of the pandemic. The presence of worrying levels of lead in the original paint also meant it had to be stripped before repainting could begin. To date, only 30% of the tower has been repainted, and in its current state, the tower requires more than 100 weekly operations to monitor the lead. The estimated cost of repairing the tower's structural issues is staggering, with estimates ranging from 130 million euros to as high as 140 million US dollars. However, the true extent of the repairs cost is shrouded in uncertainty, as the city council and the company responsible for managing the tower's daily operations are locked in a contentious dispute. The disagreement has led to a lack of clarity on the exact cost of the repairs, leaving stakeholders and observers alike wondering how the tower's owners will ultimately foot the bill. So, as we've seen, the Eiffel Tower is still standing strong and will hopefully do so for years to come. By conducting regular inspections and renovations as Gustave Eiffel had originally intended, it is hoped that the damage can be patched up. Investing in preventative measures could also benefit the tower. The mandatory cost may be steep, but isn't saving history priceless? What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Did you like the video? Head over to our channel Urban Jungle to learn more quirky and current architectural news.